like promised, I was going to continue talking about the seven deadly sins, but it's taken me a little bit, a couple days later, since there's been a huge hurricane that came through, and there's, I guess, a couple more. It did not make the trajectory that I was, that's typical, where it goes from one land and then it dissipates, and then it hits water again, and then it picks up speed. But this just came on land and then it just kept going. It dissipated, but not as quickly as it normally would to a tropical storm. So it hit a lot of people, and I had family down in Florida, and as well as a lot of areas over here in the Central Plains. So internet's been spotty, understandably. All right, so I'm Catherine. They call me the Scandinavian seer. Seeress is really what it is. So it's just somebody that I guess we look at energy a little bit differently. And so uh, it's like another language to us. So let me jump right into it. So we're going to talk about the seven deadly sins. And hopefully I can get this through and not look too confusing. So I thought I'd break it up. It'd be easier if I broke it up into sections. So first I'll talk about the seven deadly sins, because I think the last video I talked about how ego and superego, and this plays into it. And so a lot of our seven deadly sins can actually be ego driven. And it's and I don't think that there was not a purpose that it was written in the way that it was, especially in the biblical terms, but it's gone back in before then. We're talking way back during Canaanites, Mennonites, we go back to Plato, Socrates even identified some of these, and they actually do have their own terms to the seven deadly sins, which we'll talk about that, and then we go off into another video that talks about the seven virtues that counterbalance the seven deadly sins, and then I'll go on to the seven deadly, the seven sisters of the underworld, and then the ones that counterbalance those, and then of course you have the seven fallen princes, and how they intertwine into, because each one is identified with each sin. However, so is mindfulness. So for us to get full enlightenment, Buddhists would be like, for full enlightenment, you would have to have and obtain seven different types of enlightenment ascensions. And then there's master numbers. God used it as the seventh day is the day to rest. And that was when he was complete with his job. And so here we go. So I'm going to jump right in. Again, my name is Catherine. They call me the Scandinavian Seeress. And if you ever need some coaching, I do speak from energy and heart. It can be quite uncomfortable for some people, but once you get used to it, it's odd that other people don't like it. So I do coaching. I do, and you can go to my website. It's the same thing, Awakening One Within, and I can help you out there. Even if it's just religious, or if you want to have a conversation, spiritualism, I do that. Foreseeing the future, like, let's just see that. I think everyone at some level can do that. So okay, here we go. So the first ones, I'm going to actually go backwards, and the reasons why I'm going to go backwards is because the last one is technically the first one, but it really is helpful if we do that. So here's number 7, pride. So pride is something that, you can be identified as somebody that walks around and they're super proud of everything that they do. They're, elated, and they like to talk about it, right? So they're very happy. That's how modern times would look at it. But the seven deadly sins, they would label it as being very conceited, be with no regards to anybody else. So we're terming these terms as narcissism, and narcissism, it could be contributed to it, but histrionic is the same kind of thing, the female version of that. But it is basically no regard to anybody else, except that you're full, the world revolves around you. So I think of the Smurfs. So, that may date me, but the Smurfs, vanity Smurf. I'm always looking at myself. I'm always boasting about myself, right? And that's kind of technically what it is, being very conceited, a jerk almost. So ego would be identifying this. And so when I talk about ego is all about, being self-affirming. So we have this huge movement of, oh, should be efficient. You should be giving yourself positive talk, self affirmations. Yes, it is true, but if you take it too far, are you being too prideful? Are you being very conceited? Are you only talking about yourself? And how is it? There's a fine line between affirming in a positive light and actually increasing your narcissism, your imaginary or illusionary um, superiority. So you got to be careful on that part. There's an energy that comes with it. There's a counterbalance when it comes to that. But let's talk about biblical. If you want to talk about biblical, so pride is also noted in the Bible as many times. There's like 6 or 7 different sections in there. But Jeremiah 9, 23 really put it in there. Let not mighty the man who boasts of his might. So basically, it's if you're always boasting about your might, then there leaves no room for anyone else. And if you're always boasting about who you are, you're not giving homage to the creator that created you. You didn't do God's. God's will was to put you here. And if you're boasting about you being all above everything and you're mightiest in the boasting of it, all you, then you're not giving respects and honoring the one that gave you breath, gave you life. So then we talk about Buddhist and Socrates. The Plato, they used to go out, the philosophers would talk a lot, and they would have these conversations about what pride is. And to them, it was more of those that speak higher of themselves. They actually feel less about themselves. So they're boosting themselves up because they actually don't like themselves. And so philosophers found that pride, well, some philosophers, but that's more of a Buddhist. Buddhist is like you'd be prideful and you'd be accolading yourself up, but you actually don't feel that way. But you're wanting other people to mirror that to you because you need that affirmation from outside. Plato and Socrates would find pride as a glorification, and that it was welcoming, that you were supposed to boast and you were supposed to be superior. But of course, that is the time and era that they were. Of course, I am the Seeress, so I'm Scandinavian. So we just kind of was like those that boast the most tries to control the most. And so if you're boasting all the time, you're trying to control a narrative. And to us, it'd be more of comical. You'd be kind of like the jester. So it actually is a joke. And so we would probably not take you as serious because only the gods can boast about what they do. And they, in turn, will boast and try to one up each other. So it's really of a competition. So pride being boasting is not something that we would we would really take serious. And so that's kind of how we look. Now, when it comes to the pride being as the seventh deadliest sin, it is attributed to some of the other ones like the seven fallen princes and the seven underworlds. But there's also some archangels and nuns and some female heroes that actually will counterbalance that as well. But we'll talk about that in a video in the future. But if you like what's going now, subscribe and then follow me, and then you'll see the rest. So let's go on to number 6, envy. Now, this one, a lot of people know the definition. You so often put it in the thing of being jealous of somebody, envious. Um, Biblically, well, the 7 deadly sins label it as bitterness to the extreme, like so bitter that it physiologically gives you sicknesses, and that you're irritated and you're jealous. It is beyond extreme jealous. It's a desire to actually impute ill will on somebody that has something that you want. And it could be anything from like the newest shoes to a husband, a wife, kids, a house. I mean, it could be, and it is ingrained energetically inside them. And so your ego, when it comes to the ego balancing this, and ego literally placates to this. It makes you want this. It says, and even philosophers, the great philosophers, and I know I'm going out of order, so I don't want to do too far. So I'll tell you about that. But your ego is all about, hey, why can't you have that? So in a way, your egos kind of push you to get that. Well, why can't you have that? Why are they better than you? So your ego is literally sabotaging the world around you and your view of people, but it's increasing your envy, your jealousy, your extreme desire to hurt, to obtain. So when we talk about biblically, there is a Proverbs 14:30 labeled it as, be sound of heart is the life to the body, but envy will do nothing but rotten your body to the bone, way down to the bone. Um, and so Buddhists would be focus on what others have in a desire to replace. It opens the door for hate and vileness within. So Buddhists would be more of enlightenment, does not want what others have here on this plane. And if you open that door to envy, then you're opening it to vileness and hatred and negative consequences that can decay your body. And so me, a Scandinavian, we would see these as envy as like clothing. And so when we would walk around, or I would see, um, is you could see those people that have envy and they wear it like their clothes. Their body starts to decay and they age a lot faster than they should. Um, Everything that they do and say and touch would turn to bitterness and sourness. And so that's the warning that we try to keep people from doing, getting into that pocket, because you will wear it like your clothes. People will know because you actually will have an energy that comes off of you, and not just the energy. Your physical form will actually replicate what your internal energy is saying, and there is a vibration that envy puts off. And you will note, and you could feel it when you get into a room if somebody's being like that. They always have that goggle tone underneath, or they'll have that, I call it the backhanded comments. Well, do you think that you're so good? That kind of can, well, that's envy. And so philosophers would basically, along with their ego, would make, they coin it as a motivation. Like envy is a motivation. And so Plato and Socrates would have these conversations out on the hill, and sometimes it'd be nice to go back to those to hear some of them if I could time travel back there. But they would argue that this was envy was the motivation within a human body and within man to keep motivating forward, to keep getting better and better and compete, challenge the person next internally of, I'm going to be better than them, I'm going to get it better than them, I'm going to be higher than them, I'm going to have and obtain more than them. And it's a showing, so it kind of goes in line with pride, because I'm going to boast about it too. And so you see how they're starting to play in. So let me move on to, that we got envy. Let me move on to our number 5, wrath. Wrath, everybody, well, so often, we attribute wrath as, oh, I'm gonna, get you, or I'm gonna yell at you. But wrath is really anger, like an internal hate. And so it often can be projected onto people, like, I'm very hateful towards you, or I'm angry. But these will play into it, and if you put them all together, they actually fuel each other. So hate is a vileness that you attribute to somebody, because they've done something, or they have something, or it's a mirror of what you don't like about yourself, that you are irritated to them. Instead of focusing on you, you're focused on that. And anger is the physiological expression that's towards them, or whatever object you want to do it. So hate is actually the thought or the energy behind the anger, and the anger is the action, and the movement that's towards it. So when we're going to talk biblically, so in the Bible, Romans defined it really nice, 12:19. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, leave that to the God, right? Leave it to God. He wrote that leave vengeance, that vengeance is mine. I am the Lord and I will take it. And so we've seen that, I think, in a lot, especially with terrorist attacks and stuff like that. They say leave, let God handle it, and let the wrath be of from the Lord only. And so when we talk about it, and Buddhists and then would identify wrath as well, you lost control, but they would also say God is within you, and the choice to harm another being, um, may be the choice to also harm yourself, because karma works both ways. So they'd be more on the side of control the anger and the hate, that that is a reflection of your lack, and that when you take it out on another, you're taking it out on yourself. And they would not view it as a benefit at all, and that you're actually bringing and drawing in negativity to yourself, and an internal destruction. So they don't like, but Buddhists are not big advocates of that, of course, Buddhism. And then, of course, I'm Scandinavian, so anger and wrath is more, we would be wrath, but it would not be in anger in its form. It would be more of, retribution, payment. You do to others will be done back to you. Um, an eye for an eye. And it would have to actually be that you violated something of ours. So, like, if you violated, we'll go back to, well, my own family history is, somebody had stole some very tribal, um, I guess, belongings of ours that we would totem poles, and we asked for them back. My old family history asked for them back, and they were declined. But they were religious sacrament. They were religious to us, and that is something you don't do. It is actually against, our code and the way that we live, that you honor somebody's religious, ceremonial devices and items. You take care of it while they're gone, but then when they come and they ask it back, you must give it back, because it is part of them. It's an energy that is part of that family. And when you don't do it, then you're actually deeming them to the underworld. And so then it's almost like a fight. And so the wrath was, you're going to have my wrath, because the gods are going to come down and wrath on you, because you have just violated the utmost code, and we, for our honor, we have to fight back. And so the hate's not really there, but the anger is. And then death comes. And also there's another incident that one of, our indentured servants got killed by a clan next to a clan down the road. Well, we have to fight for the honor of our indentured, servant, because you can't kill one of ours. They are one of ours, and you can't kill a family member without eye for an eye. So then we'll come back to the philosophers. And now philosophers had a different freaking view on this. And theirs was chaos is the balance. So you must have crisis to balance out the positive, and there has to be a balance within it. So to fight and to stay ahead, you had to constantly have conflict or chaos within, in in reforming society. So there has to be the climax. And then in our stories, we do the same thing when we do writing. It has to have a climax, and then it falls down. And the climax is a destruction of some point. I think even some tarot readers, I had gotten one of those, and they talk about this, what's called the tower. And the tower is total destruction so you can build, because the foundation was faulty. So wrath is kind of being seen like that, and that's how philosophers kind of seen it. It was faulty, so we need to destroy it and then rebuild. So then let's go on to number 4, sloth. So sloth is all about procrastination. I know sloth people think that, it's just laziness. Well, it is, but it's not. Because people that exhibit sloth actually are not that lazy. It's a procrastination. But the procrastination is different. It's a failure to take action to further themselves. So sloth is all about not taking initiative, um, be letting something else drive it. And so sloth is often connected with fear. So they procrastinate because of the fear of failure. So procrastination is all about fear of failure. Sloth is all about I'm failing. I'm not taking action because I'm afraid of fear. So I'm going to fail. Um, and in the Bible, they Proverbs basically said, "Go to the ant, you are sluggish. Consider her ways, for the ant is always prepared." Proverbs 6:6, which is the first time I've actually like was reading the Bible and I saw that. Well, I've read that thing like 9 times. It's an interesting read, because you really have to. It can be tiresome, and it's a lot of cognitive thoughts that go on, and you have to read with your heart at sometimes. So that's the first time I've read Proverbs 6 is go to the ant. You're sluggish. Consider her ways, for she is preparing. It's the first time that I've ever seen a combination between like a Buddhist motto and a biblical one, because Buddhists would say the same thing. Go to the farmer who has stockpiled for the winter. Go to look at the bear that has hibernated. He has stuffed himself throughout the year, summer and the spring, to last through the winter, and he must go hibernate. So sloth is all about preparing, moving forward, taking this action. Me as a seer is you get what you put in. So our tradition is during the holiday times, especially at Christmas. You must put out, of course, for the gnome, you have to put out a porridge with an almond in it. But if you did not prepare enough for the winter, and you hope on Christmas Eve when you put out your offerings to thank them for coming and to save you and spare you for the winter, that Krampus doesn't come and take you out, because you better have prepared, but you better have given enough, and the best of the best is supposed to be offered as an offering to the gods, and biblical too. That's what we do Christmas Eve for. So sloth is all about procrastinations. Philosophers and your ego, that's a different thing. So they use it's more of a self-sabotaging tactic. So what they do is it's actually kind of counterproductive, that we're noticing now, but they give you negative coaching. You're lazy. Move. Keep going. You know what? You're not prepared. Come on, you could do it, which actually makes you more fearful from taking action, because you're more afraid you're going to fail because everybody else has this hope that you're going to be this way. And so basically, your ego is telling you negative things to get you motivated, which we know now it really doesn't work that way. But philosophers, Socrates and Plato, would say no, it absolutely did. And so again, it takes a time frame, as we don't put as much value. It's all in the meaning of the word, right? So back then, in the philosophers and Socrates, may have been that you're lazy, keep moving, keep moving. And so it was a motivation word and not a negative word. And you could see over time that it became a negative word. All right, so here's number 3. We're moving down to the line. So here's greed. And greed is all about obtaining the maximum. I know everybody's like, oh, it's money, 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 money. Kinda. But it's abundance, really. So greed is all about obtaining the maximum, excessive, materialistic item at any world. It could be maximum money. It could be cars. It could be drugs. It could be compliments. It is full on, I have to have it all. It's mine. I need the most and the most. And so you're driven that way. In the Bible, Hebrew 13:5. Let's see. Let your conduct be without covetousness. So there's where the word is, covetousness. Covet is I am lying. I'm within. I make a bond and a contract. So covet is a contract, an unbreakable contract. So greed is all about making these contracts of excessiveness of here. And that was Hebrew 13:5, if you want to check that out, because that so often I hear people saying covet, we go and covet, we do the church. Well, that could be actually part of greed, because relationships should be there, right? And so Buddhist would be more of, and I did a thing on my Instagram, and Facebook that of Awakening One Within. You can go and check that out. Um, Money. So Buddhists and some of these energetic philosophers, as well as the modern day, is money is a transfer. It's just the same. It just happens to be metal and paper that transfers a trade between something. But when you trade something or you purchase something, you are purchasing it with an energy, and that energy is going to be returned. So it says, be more wise of what you're spending your money on, because it actually has a return value on it, and you will value yourself based on what you put your money into. And so me as Scandinavian, we're like, well, the more you can obtain of value, the higher you move up within the nine realms. And so ours would not always be money or materialistic things. Ours would be virtue. Ours would be honoring the highest creator, the God of gods, right? It would be all about moving up. So greed would not be something that would be totally viewed negative, because greed would not be attributed to money per se, but gold. We know at some point gold and all of that would not be taken with us now, but back in like the year 1000, we actually thought it was going up too, and it would pay our way through to get up into after Ragnarok. We would be sitting at the table with the gods, and that it would pay our way up through there. And so greed would not be seen as a negative. So Plato and them, they would actually they would say it would maintain your status quo. So the more you can obtain, the higher you move up. Caesar, the more material, the more value. And you can see that is actually part of our society now, that people actually think that materialistic things raise their value, except that those have been proven that they end up staying here, and it doesn't really value you anymore. It actually is slowly starting to turn people away when you become like that, because you actually start becoming more prideful, and you become envious, and see how it's all starting to play into each other. You become angry and hateful and bitter, and then you start, then your fear starts kicking in, and then the greed is, I've got to have more, I've got to have more, and then it turns into a total, like, your body starts changing, and your behavior starts becoming very, very well, your envy, your body starts changing to replicate what's going on inside. So that's our greed, and greed is all about obtaining the maximum, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be money, and it doesn't have to be materialistic things. It's just what is being on this earth. Middle earth is what my people would call it, middle earth, mid earth, and so it's only obtainable here, but it gets you through the door to sit at the plane. So it's still left here, it's just not going that way. And I think a lot of religions are the same way, but spirituality is all about being. So here's number two, gluttony. So gluttony, I know everybody thinks it's food, and it could be, but gluttony is really the definition of the second, number two, deadly sin. The second one is excessiveness. It's really overindulgence. It doesn't matter what you overindulge in. You can overindulge in food. You can overindulge in alcohol. You can overindulge in smoking, talking negative. You can overindulge in exercise, in uh, helping others. I mean, there's a lot that you can do, that you can overindulge, but it is all about excessiveness. Gluttony is all about that. And First Corinthians 10:31 in the Bible. And these are just the Old Testament. Well, it's King James versions. Therefore, I have to read this because it's a little long. Therefore, whether you eat, drink, or whatever, all of that glory of what you've obtained needs to be given back to God. Okay. And so you need to still pay homage to the creator that gave it to you. And that becoming overly obsessive over it means that you're not paying tribute. That you have focused so much on the drinks and the wines and the alcohol and the food and the negative talk, that you are not focused on who gave it to you. who put you here to allow you to have those. And there's a balance between that. Um, and that will go into what Buddha says is anything done um, with mind and not heart, uh, it becomes distasteful and bitter. And so that basically can be replicated in the way that you talk and you behave, and it's a slippery slope into increasing your karma, which can be on the negative. So there is dark karma coming, but you want to increase a balance. And so that's basically what Buddhist would be. And I would view it as anything that is overdone is like beating a dead horse and thinking it's going to move and work. Um, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, I mean, I think it was Descartes says, um, the definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over again and thinking that it's going to produce different results. Addiction is the same. So gluttony is a lot about obsessiveness and addiction, really. And so when we talk about modern world, the second deadly sin is probably the one that is most universally termed as mental illness, when it really is an internal value. So our ego would probably put it as a palate, and it's it's I think Plato kind of left it as, oh, it's a virtuous palate of our gut that um, hones us into our fascinations and our drive, uh, and it's our brain in the ego world is our brain is wanting us to obtain the maximum of everything, and that if we overindulge in it, that we will get the most out of it and leave none for others, um, which puts us better than them. And there's the ego. But if you can see, we're also looking at that now. We talk about it, and I'm not making a choice. I mean, if you want an electric car, if you want a gas car, whatever. But when we jump in, and we've seen in the past, when we jump in on one and we use up all that resource, there's none later. So the balance to be there. I'm not against either one, but when they try to dominate just one section, it doesn't work. If we all went and ate bananas and that's all we were allowed to eat, then there'd be no more bananas now, would they? If we all cut down all the trees and not have any land or forests, then we would have a whole bunch of houses and no trees. So there has to be an equal and not an overindulgence, and that pretty much what is gluttony, is not to overdo. And so, of course, I guess I threw a little bit more Scandinavian in there, anyways. All right, so here's the top of the one. This is lust, and this is the number one. Um, so lust is a strong passion. I know a lot of people think lust is all about the sex and intimacy and dirty talk and lustful, dirty, downright sadistic, like kind of pedophilic drives. But it really is a lot deeper than that. It's about passion. It's about obsessiveness. It's about OCD. It's about all about control. So lust is control in its deepest core. It's control. Lust is to control over things. So Second Timothy did in the Bible identifies and coins lust as flee also youthful lusts, pursues righteousness. That's what you should do. Faith, love, and peace. And so that's how the Bible would define it. And that's where I think it gets confusing, because the Bible, there's several of them in there, and they're pretty much similar to this. Is flee all your youthful spryness, your Twitter patterned spring stuff, and focus solely on faith, love, and peace. I like the faith, love, and peace. That's great. But I think when you are not cognitively ready to absorb the biblical text, it can get confusing. So let's go back. Lust is all about strong passion, and it's obsessiveness, it's control. And in youth, we do run amok and try to experience all these experiences, but our hormones are going at the same time. So Buddhists would be all about, they would kind of coin lust as passion leads you away from what truly is life. And that I think actually is a better definition for what lust is. Of course, Timothy, each chapter has their own, each Bible book inside the Bible, the collection of the biblical text, has their own little coin. But I think that one is probably the best one is passion leads you away from what truly life is. And life is all about, well, go back into the Bible, faith, love, and peace. And so me, Scandinavian, we are all just like it's balance. It's just a balance. Yeah, is lust bad? No, lust is not bad. To me or our world is passion is beautiful because it gives you a drive. But when it controls too much and there's not a balance between humanity, and love and peace and family, then it's taking over, and then it's no longer a drive, it's a control. And so then we go to ego. Philosophers would be of, oh, it's great, be lustful and beautiful and boisterous and grab that beautiful woman and have your moments of euphoric, and that's all it is the moments of euphoric. And ego would be where your body would override your thoughts, and that they don't like when it is out of control and you don't have control of it, so it's only temporary. You take your lustful moments and then you get back, because then it's unruly, and you cannot be fully in control if your thoughts are not dominating. And so ego is all about, no, nope, lust is only for 5 minutes behind the door. Don't do it anymore, right? Because then you're being unholy, or you're allowing that to control you. You're allowing your passions to control you. And there should be a balance. And so I go back, of course, to my Scandinavian roots, and there should be a balance. There is a place for everything. So there's the seven deadly sins. And let me go back down. So I hit pride was the seventh, envy was the sixth, wrath was the fifth, sloth was the fourth, third is greed, gluttony is the number two, and lust is number one. And of course, the balancer in that is pride, to balance that out, to keep their balance. So of course, I'm going to come from the Scandinavian side. There's always got to be a balance. If they all negative, no, at some point we have to have them, or we'll experience them. And I will get that in another video, because there are 7 trials, and each one of them have something to do with these. There is a connection. And then, of course, I'll take it from a point of view of Buddhists, philosophers from the olden times, Socrates, Plato, some of the modern day philosophies. And of course, I will always tell you about how I view it as a Scandinavian seer. And here is the balancers to them, and I will do that in the next video. So for pride, to equalize pride, to balance it out, remember, pride is the conceited, and has no regard for anybody else. The balance it is you actually have to cure it by removing your ego and having some humility in there. That means think of somebody else besides yourself when you're making decisions, and if you boast about them too. And then number 6 is envy. Now, envy, to cure envy, of course, there's got to be a balance. Envy is all about bitterness. And I mean, this is like an extreme drive to do ill will or wish ill will on somebody. And that's bad karma all the way across the way. I mean, even Buddhists will do that. We don't like to do that, because what you give out is what's going to come back. What you reap is what you sow. But to cure that, you need to actually be kind, like desire and help people create another environment above your own, and be actual kind. And it has to come from within. You can't fake that, because that's how it comes back. 6 is wrath. And so to cure wrath is that hate, which is the thought behind it, or the drive that's behind it. Anger is the expression. Remember, it's the action that's towards it. To do that, you actually have to have some patience. And patience, not, oh, wait. No, Patience is all about looking and understanding other people's point of view and recognizing that you're not always the right one. And that's how you really cure wrath and your anger and your hate and your domination over it, is you really have to see it from their point of view. The old saying goes, put your shoes, walk a mile in their shoes. So that's how you cure wrath. Sloth, and that's the procrastination, remember? So this is all about diligence. This is like getting up schedules, right? Putting interests outside of life, of ease, above yourself. Life outside of you. That's what should be desired. And not so much the failure that you have internally and how people view that. No, how are they going to benefit? Let's look at them. Let's just help them. Let's work on that. And then I wouldn't be focusing so much on self-centeredness, my own failures, which is not really there anyways. That's an ego. And then we have third, which is greed. And greed is obtaining the maximum, remember, materialistic, doesn't matter what it is here on the earthly plane. To actually cure being greedy is you need to have charity. And charity is all about putting somebody else's desires. You don't have to actually have all the money to do this. You don't need to go out and feed all the homeless, but to actually maybe even just sit down and listen to somebody, right? Or to give a gift and not have anybody recognize you for it. That is putting somebody else, sharing something, a treasure. It may be even a story, or listening to somebody else share because they need the spotlight. That is charity. Is maybe you always getting the attention and this time you decide not to. And it's not that you're better than them, you want to share with them. And number two is gluttony. And so gluttony, remember, is the overindulgence, excessiveness. It's more of an addiction. So that's what I attribute it to. To balance that and to cure that, you need temperance. Temperance is all about implanting your desire to be fit, healthy, take care of the body that you were given, not to overindulge, not to put things that are harmful in you, not to increase being, you know, better than the next person, because that's also an addiction, is to fight and compete with somebody else. Envy can be an addiction, wrath can be an addiction, anger outbursts, procrastination, negative self-talk, all of it can be an addiction. And is that not good for your body? And if you're good and you treat your body healthy inside, the outside will actually replicate it, and you will see it and there'll be a glow. People will be like, whoa, you're glowing. And then you may want to internally go, hey, what am I doing? And then number one is lust. And lust, again, remember, it's the strong passion. It's not just about sex. It is actually passionate and the drive to control things, be obsessively. It can get out of control if you let it be too much, but a little bit is there. And chastity is that. And that's really just self-control. That's all you have to do, is really be self-controlling, leveling out the balancing scale. Make sure that there's equal when it comes to it. Passion is not a bad thing, being obsessive and domineering over the passion and doing whatever you can to put somebody down to keep it, or just utilize it for self gratification for 2 or 3 minutes. And that's so often attributed to lust, but that has actually become a control and a passion. But that's also greed and pride, and gluttony, excessiveness. So to see how they're all kind of playing in. So the next video I want to do, and hopefully you're able to keep along with this one. You can make a comment down there if you want me to increase or go into one of these later on in the videos. I think that I first want to get to the 7 trials, but we also have the 7 sisters of the underworld and the 7 fallen sons of heaven. They're the, well, Lucifer and Satan and Beelzebub, some of them. And then, of course, we have the archangels and then our lovely feminines that actually are attributed to some of these. So, all right. Well, thank you again for showing and watching my video. So, like, subscribe if you want. Go check out my Instagram and webpage. Follow them if you want. I do a lot of little quotes and some information there. And then, of course, if you would like some help speaking your love language, talking from your heart, getting a Scandinavian seer, I do coaching, life coaching as well, and actually acceptance of who we are. And from, of course, a Scandinavian point of view, I am a seeress, so sometimes energy gives me a message that your words don't, and I try to stay out of ego. And I'll note it there, but once again, your brain is going to screw you up if you listen to that and only that. There has to be a balance. All right. Till the next time, thank you for coming to Scandinavian Seers. All right.